Brianna Taylor, say her name, say their names. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Stina Show. I have a very exciting guest coming on, Kevin Fox, who's a writer and a producer. Hi, Swan. Welcome. And all y'all know my love for SVU, and Kevin Fox was a writer on that show for a while. He's also a writer on a lot of popular shows. How you doing, Swan? Welcome. I hope you had a good week, and I'm looking forward to Kevin joining. He has to probably figure this out. Oh, there we go. Okay. I should just really keep this there, truly. Oh, Swan, I wanted to see your face. Hi, Mom. Oh, my internet. It's not working. Welcome, guys. If you have any questions for Kevin, please write them below. I think there's an option here. Hi, Mom. Welcome. Let me see. Hold on. Give me a second. I don't see him here, so I hope it's alright. Someone saying hi to Mom. Okay. Oh, hey, Kevin. There you are. Hi, welcome. I'll put this. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hi, Kevin. Welcome. I'm going to try to pull you in here. Oh, shit. Oh, shoot. Kevin, if you're on your computer, you could only do it on your phone. I think that's what's happening because I'm trying to bring you in. I'm sorry. I always forget to tell my guests that. It's the worst. Where are you? Okay. Hold on, Kevin. Use your phone. How is everyone else? I hope you're good. Sorry for the hold up. It's Hi, Mark. Welcome. How are you? Happy Thursday to y'all. Thank you for joining. Okay, Kevin, I got you. I got you. Oh my gosh. Hi, Kevin.
There we go. That's better.
That is better. I always forget to tell people. How are you?
Good. Let me just turn you off my computer so we don't get feedback. There we go.
Oh, cool. Wow, look how tropical that looks also.
Yeah, it's LA.
How you doing? You safe out there?
It's good. It's just weird. Like, the sky is orange. Not as orange as it is up north. I mean, I'm in LA, but it's still like cloudy, smoky, terrible.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that.
Well,
I know it's wild out there.
It's nice variety from the usual, 76 and sunny. So
That's true. That's true. When I lived out there, I had to get away or else I went crazy.
yeah, I mean, if you're from the East Coast and you actually have seasons, LA's a little weird Hugs Day.
Yeah, you left. You were here for a while, right? You went back there.
I've been mostly on the East Coast my whole career. I came out here a couple times to do a movie, couple TV shows, but mostly East Coast. Mostly
Which
New
you
York.
like better?
Well, I grew up in New York. So I grew up in Staten Island. So, if I wanted to talk like I was from Staten Island, I could talk like I'm from Staten Island. But then nobody would think I would write because, I'd sound stupid. But, I kind of have gone back and forth wherever the work is.
Well, you have family out here?
Yeah, I'm one of six, and my dad was a cop. Three of my uncles were cops. Three of my cousins were cops. New York City. So my family is all over New York, born and bred. So lots of
So,
cousins.
so you didn't want to be a cop, but you wanted to write for cops instead.
Um, I thought about being a cop, and my father told me, the job was getting worse at that time. It was like the crack epidemic. So he said, become a federal agent. They don't have to do any work. They lounge around all day and do nothing and take the credit for what the NYPD does. But to do that, you had to have a bachelor's degree at the time. So I figured I'd go to school, and then I was going to go to law school. But I hated everyone in all my classes that was going to go to law school and decided I didn't want to spend my time with lawyers. So
Good idea.
I decided I was acting at the time, from like middle school through college, I was an actor. And I always started writing creatively if I could get away with it. So I was writing plays, writing, short skits and stuff all through college, and then decided that I didn't want to pay back my student loans because I didn't have any money to do that. And to do that, all I had to do was take 12 credits at grad school, and then figured 12 credits wasn't that hard, so I'd write and try and sell something. And if I sold something, then, I wouldn't actually have to work for a living. I could write for a living. So I sold something. I actually started a second master's so that I wouldn't have to pay back student loans. I was working at the time. I actually spent a few years traveling in the touring industry. I traveled with Springsteen and Billy Joel a little bit.
Wow, cool.
And, worked rock concerts all around New York at the Pier, Madison Square Garden, Jones Beach, Waterloo Village in New Jersey. Did all that.
What were you doing on the set?
Anything they would pay me to do, basically. My uncle, who was a cop, started a security business. So we would run the press gate and backstage security, members of my family and people he worked with. So it started with that, and then got to know people, and they're like, well, if you want to set up chairs or you want to build the stage. And I was non-union, but it was unions building the stage, so I get union wages. And then I would do the security for the stage as I was building the stage, so I get paid security and union wages for building the stage. So that's how I put myself through college.
Wow, so that sounds fun too.
Yeah, it's fun for a while. I wouldn't want to do it forever.
Yeah, because you can't rise the ranks. Where are you going to go?
No, it's good pay. It's fun, but it's
It's good
backbreaking work. Yeah, when you get to a certain age and you're lifting steel 80 feet in the air to build a stage, it's kind of like, why am I still doing this?
Ooh. Well, I'm glad you find your calling.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to, as my family would say, bullshit my way through life than actually, work for a living. But
well, writing has its challenges.
Yeah, it does. But personally, I like it. The joke is, I write for a living. I write for a hobby. I write for therapy. I write to relax. So I get work done because,
Just keep. So what is your? I'm going to just skip around. But what is one of your tools of preference?
I have found over the years that you need all the tools, whether it's character development or structure or. But when I was starting, like if I was going to write a thriller, I'd just go and say, what are the 10 best thrillers? And I would outline them. And sit down, outline them, and then outline who the characters were and what function they served. And if you do that with 10 really good films in a genre, there's patterns. Every 10 minutes, something happens. In a thriller, it's usually somebody's kidnapped, somebody dies, there's some reversal that someone isn't who you thought they were. And if you track that in 10 on a spreadsheet, and then you laid in your own characters and your own arcs and your own setting, it suddenly becomes something different. And then sometimes I teach and I play this game with, young writers. It's like, name a genre, name your favorite character, and name your favorite movie. And if you combine your favorite character with your favorite movie and a different genre than the movie is in, it's a whole new movie. And it's surprising how quickly you can do that. And then, of course, there's character development. You get a specific character, you put them in a situation that's occurred 1,000 times before, and the character deals with the situation differently. You have a new movie or television show. So, there's lots of different tools you can use, and any of them are good, and all of them are better. it helps double check your work.
I was thinking earlier today, the writer, like being an audience member and a viewer, the writer is the magician because no one really thinks about the writer. They
No.
think about the actor and maybe the beautiful scenery.
Well, hopefully they're not thinking about the writer, because if it's that written,
Yeah, right. That's true.
You're paying attention to what you shouldn't pay attention to.
Right.
If you're figuring out how the trick is done instead of being in awe, you're a bad magician.
Yeah. I've been watching a lot of those movies lately.
The magician ones?
The non-magician ones.
Oh, the ones that you look at and you go, oh, wow, that's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of it's comedy, but hey.
Well, I mean, sometimes it's good to watch a movie and you kind of know what's coming. Romantic comedies are very formulaic, but when done well, it's kind of, you relax, you can check out, you don't need to think too much. But it's also fun to be surprised once in a while.
What's your favorite genre?
I like thrillers, but I also like action comedies. That they just don't make action comedies anymore because they don't know how to market them. But like classic movies, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Sting, E.T., just movies that surprise you and pull out some emotion and make you think. The Sting was always my favorite as a kid. I don't know why. I think it's because it was about con men, and it's the magic trick. You don't see it coming, and there's an assassin, but nobody ever expects it to be the woman. All of the kind of ways they hid things in plain sight was fun.
So then, so those were your inspirations, in a way.
Yeah, in a way they were. I mean, some of the, I wrote a lot of different things. A lot of the first stuff that I wrote, after The Negotiator, wrote a bunch of scripts that never got made for Jerry Bruckheimer, which were all sort of action thrillers.
Nice.
Which are fun to write because it's actually easier to write something with high stakes. If it's life or death, you can bring the audience along because they're going to care as long as they care about the characters. The small movies that are about, deep emotions are harder to write because you have to really engage the audience. They don't have that adrenaline running when something's blowing up. They don't have any of that. And through college, I was writing plays, and most of them were like sort of not quite as comedic as Neil Simon, but that kind of comedy. But given that it was a family of cops and it was a way to get started, The Negotiator, and then the first things I started writing in TV were police, and I was getting the job because I knew the world so well. So I kind of got that reputation as, I write for police. So.
Well, I found you through SVU, which is the ultimate show.
Yeah, SVU was a ton of fun. In 1999, when it first came out, I remember watching it and saying, this is a show about rape. How do you rape somebody every week? It'll never last. Oops.
Yeah.
13, 14 years later, Warren Light hired me to write on it. And I sort of asked him the same question. He said, these are like Grimm's fairy tales. We do justice at the end where you don't get it in the real world. We really educate people. We're not showing the rapes. We're not making it gratuitous or exploitative wherever we can. And that kind of take on that show was much better for me because it was educational. There was justice when a lot of times there isn't justice. We didn't lose a lot of cases, which in the real world, those cases are lost all the time. It felt good to do some good in that. And Mariska is fantastic, and the Joyful Heart Foundation giving all that back and working for survivors and working for laws to pass to help survivors, and clearing the rape kit backlog and all of that stuff felt like, okay, we're not just writing a show, to get people all ginned up about sexual assault. We're writing something, to educate people and hopefully make a difference. So I could do it that way.
I follow the writer's room, and they do so much research for these episodes.
Yeah. There's a ton of research done, especially when Warren's there, because Warren he makes sure that we have seminars, we have cops come in, we have DAs come in, we have sexual assault counselors, You know, we have nurses come in who deal with rape kits, and, you know, Kim Worthy from Detroit, the DA.
I've met her. She's awesome.
Yeah. She came in to talk, and, you know, there's a lot that is done to educate the writers before anything is written down. You know, and Joyful Heart, you know, takes a look at stuff too to make sure that we don't step over the line, and sometimes it's hard because, you know, the drama is in the assault and that kind of stuff, and we keep it, at least when I was there, tried to keep all of that off screen, because we don't need to see that. We know what that is.
Right, you don't need to see it over again.
Yeah, we you know, how do we do justice for the victim? You know, how do we try our best to make a change in what is a rape culture? You know.
Yeah, no,
So,
I mean, I've binged that show many times. I mean, I have you. I'll just play it quick because I find this very impressive. Ready? Here we go. You know what it is.
yeah.
Oh shoot!
There you go.
You wrote that episode, right?
Yeah, I think I'm credited with working on 116 episodes.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how many I wrote, but, you know, even the ones, a lot of them that I didn't write, I was on set for, you know, and you're involved in, and you're breaking story with the other writers, and, you know, sometimes you're sitting there, and it's happened that, like, I was on Twitter when I was there. It was like third or fourth season, and, you know, there's a couple things that you say in the room, and it's a line that you just threw out, and you're not credited. You didn't write the episode, and somebody goes, "Oh, that sounds like Kevin's line," and I wouldn't have recognized it, but somebody who's watching did, which is always strange to me that the audience can hear a writer's voice in a show like that has so many episodes and so many different writers. I guess I'm
What a
sarcastic.
compliment! That's awesome.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if it's a compliment, but
I believe it is. As a performer, from that viewpoint, I believe it is.
Yeah. Well, I took
But
it that way rather than it's easier to take it that way than not. So I did.
yeah, right. Well, no, that's so cool. So I'll probably get back to that because I love it so much. But you're working. What other new projects do you have going on?
I am an executive producer right now on a show called Raising Kanan, which is a spinoff of Power. It's 50 Cent's character from Power, Kanan, as a 16, 17-year-old boy growing up in South Jamaica, Queens, and getting into the crack game, and in 1991. And 1991 in South Jamaica, Queens, was the heart of the crack epidemic, but it was also where Run DMC came out of, LL Cool J came out of. I mean, rap stars left and right came out of Jamaica and Queens. It was the heart of the East Coast rap game. And so we're kind of doing the confluence of, and crack and drugs fueled some of those first big record companies and producers and stuff, you know, that's where they got their money to invest.
Right.
So we're kind of doing the confluence of that stuff. You know, how did this one family, which Kanan's raised by a single mother, he's got two uncles, his cousin that appears in Power, which is Jukebox, she ends up becoming a cop. How did that family end up, you know, one's a cop, one is Kanan, who's basically a sociopath, and then we're going to follow the uncles who tried to get into the music business, and how, you know, some of those people from those neighborhoods became billionaires in the music business, and others got into the crack game. Some of them did very well with money and got out, but most of them didn't. You know, ended up in jail, ended up dead, and just looking through that lens, and not just, you know, what a horrible time it was, but what caused it, and what was the sort of systemic causes of it that kept those neighborhoods, you know, in a crack epidemic, and you know, pushed people to get out through music or whatever they could.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's turning out really well because, you know, it sounds like it's a, you know, a crack drama or a crime drama. It is, but it's also a family drama. I mean, we have like the family gathering around a table almost every meal, and every episode having a meal. You know, and Kanan and his cousin Jukebox are really close, and they're 16, 17-year-old kids. They're kids. You know, so what do they do, and how do they deal with, you know, the world around them where people are getting shot and killed and crack? You know, his mother is one of the biggest crack dealers in Queens. What happens when you grow up in that family? It's still a family, you know.
And
So
and for me, that music shaped my life. I love that music.
yeah, and 50's writing the theme song. You know,
Nice.
so we'll have that, which is going to be great. And he's, you know, he's being inspired by the era, which is nice because, you know, he knows how to take other people's music and other music and really weave in, you know, that kind of familiar sound of a time period.
Songs have been huge successes. I mean, his shows too.
Yeah, I mean, he's good at what he does. I think he's got like something like 6 shows on the air or going to be on the air. He's doing really well. So
That's awesome. Congrats on that gig. That's really
yeah.
cool.
And then I sold a pitch to Amazon that's based on all of Billy Joel's IP, his whole song catalog, which is in development. It's a long development process.
You had me at Billy Joel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, you know, he's such an American icon that you have to be careful with it, but you can't be too careful or you end up with nothing, you know. You know, you end up with, oh, it's the song, rather than, oh, it's Billy Joel's song and it's really interesting and it's something else, without, you know, without deviating too far from what Billy Joel is. So, you know, walking that line is interesting.
Well, you've met him, you've worked with him, so you have more of a connection.
Yeah, my brother's his stage manager, and the guys that are currently working with him were the guys who were touring with him, you know, years ago when I was doing that kind of stuff. So I've known them forever. Man
of loyalty. I like that.
Yeah. Well, his whole crew is a very loyal crew and really good people.
I know because I'm from Long Island, so I hear a lot about him. And I hear nothing but good things about him and his family.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's, I mean, when you have the same crew, like one of the guys that I'm working with on the show has been with him for 45 years.
45 years.
Yes. So he's his lighting designer, and he started, you know, when Billy had done Piano Man, basically, you know. So it's, you know, when you have that kind of people around you on a crew for a long time, you're not a bad guy. I mean, nobody sticks around for that long if you're not a good guy. So
no, so good luck. Break a leg on the project. That sounds like gold in itself.
Yeah, you know, it's going to be one of those long development processes, but hopefully, you know, knock on wood, it all turns out the way it should.
Well, like anything that's birthed from something big, it takes a very long time.
Yeah. Everyone wants to be very careful.
So, how is your family? You're doing okay out there?
Yeah, you know, everything's good. Other than we're in the middle of a pandemic and a fascist overtaking of the government.
I know. It's so embarrassing.
My oldest daughter is up at Emerson, and, you know, senior year, going to be going to grad school probably in England or Ireland.
Nice.
And the younger one was supposed to start SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, but is doing it from here because they're not opening, they're doing it all remote. So she gets to spend her freshman year of college with her father in a house in LA, which doesn't sound very exciting. Yeah.
I'm upset. I'm always so thankful to be past those years.
Yeah. I mean, I had a great time. I had a great time, but, you know, I'm good.
Yeah, right. Can we move along now? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you write anything? Well, eventually you'll write something on this, right?
You know, if I wrote 2020, they would have fired me 6 months ago. It's unbelievable. It's over the top. It's too much. The death toll, come on, really? Let's make it 45,000 and make it believable. You know, I mean, the notes I could give on this year, the notes I would have gotten on this year if I wrote it. But I think everybody's going to have to write something about it. But I think the best stuff is probably going to be individual perspectives where it's in the background and part of the tension, but not the whole story.
Yeah, I think 2020 is still processing.
Yeah, I think we're still processing 2016, to be honest.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know,
It's a
there's a
fact.
lot that's happened, and you know, when you start thinking about some of the stuff that's happened that we've just passed over, um, you know, the Saudis killing a journalist that we just never did anything about, the kids in cages, you know, there's just so many like things that would have ended another presidency or people would have been very upset about, and we just seem to keep rolling past them.
Yeah, and Mother Nature's like, wake up, wake up
Yeah, I mean the sky was orange here all day, and the fires aren't.
today.
Yeah, the fires aren't even really that close to us. Woke up this morning and smelled smoke, and you know I actually checked the app to see if there were fires near me, and there aren't really. But that's how much is burning.
So
Um,
sad.
yeah,
Yeah, so
it's a lot.
so don't write it. Don't write it yet. Write it personally to get it out, I suppose.
Yeah, you know I think part of me feels like people need something to be hopeful about, and
Right.
it might be easier to write something hopeful than about 2020 at the moment, because I think there's still more to come, given
Oh
all
my.
the schools. Well, you know, I think about it, all the schools are opening.
Yeah.
You know, the elementary through high school plus college, and then they're going to send some of those kids home when there's problems, and they're going to take stuff home. So we're going to have spikes of that stuff, plus flu season, plus an election that will probably be disputed in some way. So I think there's still a lot of 2020 to come. Um,
Looking forward.
yeah, exactly. Keeping my head down, ordering DoorDash, staying at home, you know, that kind of thing.
That was my next question. How do you get in a zone and stay in the zone?
Um, you know, for me, it's all the prep work. It's if the idea is right, combined with the right characters. The joke is that I sort of, once I have everything, I just listen to the voices in my head, which are the characters, and I write down whatever they say. Um, and you know, I think acting for years helped, because if you go through each character and you know what they want in every scene, and you know their voices and their background, and you've done all your prep work like you would do if you were a theater student acting the parts, um, it becomes very clear quickly, you know, what each character wants. So how are they going to respond to each incident, and how are they going to try and manipulate the scene? So if you come through a character perspective and an acting perspective, the dialogue and the rest are easier to write. That's after you've laid down a structure that, you know, beginning, middle, end, tease, you know, first 5 to 6 pages, you're setting up what is it, what happened, why are we here, why do we care, and what the inciting incident is. And then you have your world, which can change things. But, you know, once the setup is there, it's sort of channeling. It's like, what would that character say in that? And I did a lot of improv as well. So, you know,
Yeah,
improv
Deepak.
helps, because you're not editing yourself, you're just letting it flow.
Right.
Um, and I think that's the hardest part for anybody who's starting to write, is everybody wants everything to be good.
Right.
And I think the key to writing is allowing it to be crap and then editing it. Just get it out, write it down. And the more you do that, the more, if you kill your editors and you just write, the more you do it, the more you'll start to get into the flow and trust yourself, and it becomes easier. You know, I have friends who are writers out here, and, you know, we have to write outlines and stuff, and they're like, how did you write that so fast? Because I didn't question myself. You know, I didn't worry about it. Now, that's after doing it for 25 years. If someone who started writing said, oh, I didn't question myself, I just wrote it, I'd say go back and try again. I wouldn't even read it. But, you know, at a certain point, you kind of have to stop editing yourself and go with it. But that's after you have the tools. When you know structure, when you know character. I think dialogue is the hardest thing to learn, because most people try to write dialogue. And, you know, if I'm teaching somebody younger, what I will teach them is, don't write your dialogue. Say the dialogue. Say it into a tape recorder and then transcribe it or whatever, because, like I'm doing now, because, like, you know, all of that stuff and that patterning of spoken behavior is not the same as written behavior. Like, get rid of periods, get rid of, you know, have run-on sentences, have 3-word sentences. it's hard for people to break the writing habit to write dialogue and put spoken word on paper.
So monologue's okay in here, dialogue, bring it outside.
Yeah, I mean, and monologues, you can, for a monologue, there has to be an audience for a monologue. Even in Shakespeare, there's an audience. When they're talking out loud or talking to themselves, you have to think about, who are they talking to? They're talking to themselves. Why are they talking to themselves? There's an audience for a monologue. A lot of time when actors do monologues, they're not trying to elicit a reaction. They're trying to get the words out.
Right.
And even if it's in yourself, you have to try and elicit a reaction. To be or not to be, that is the question. And that's flat, unless Hamlet's really asking himself if that's the question. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to be eliciting a reaction, or there's no point in saying it. And that's true of all dialogue. Dialogue is intended to elicit a reaction. And sometimes the reaction that they're trying to elicit is subtext, and it's not the text. And that's better dialogue, when when the audience is following what's not being said.
Yeah, because you don't want to tell them what to think, right?
Right. If it's very on the nose, the audience gets bored quickly. It's like, okay, they just told me everything that's going to happen.
Those are beginners' lessons in writing, right?
Yeah, I think it's harder. You're just trying to get the story out at first, and to get story out, a lot of times you end up telling the story, and not showing the story. And dialogue is tricky because you're always telling with dialogue, because you're using words out loud, but you have to forget that, and you have to just show two people talking. If you're showing two people talking, it's different than the dialogue telling you something. And I think that's just a different lens on it. When, if you were to observe two people in Starbucks talking, they're not trying to tell you anything, but you're getting the story, right? When you're watching a movie, sometimes writers make the mistake of the characters are telling the audience something. They're not telling the audience something. They're having a conversation. The audience is an incidental observer. So if you treat the audience as an incidental observer to something real, you're now showing and you're not telling. So if you cannot use dialogue to tell but to show, that's the best use of dialogue. But it's a small distinction, but it makes a difference.
No, I'm thinking of movies. Some are coming to my head where it's like, no good.
Yeah. The movies where somebody comes in and says, I was just with my ex-girlfriend, and my ex-girlfriend said that, it's like, okay, this is a download to the audience. And the difference is, what the hell's wrong with you? Why'd you slam the door? Why are you in a bad mood? I was with that bitch. Well, what's that got to do with me? Nothing. Just leave me alone. Now, you're two people are having a conversation that's real and based on this asshole's in a bad mood, and you're going to get out the same information, but he's not telling. It's being elicited, and it's a reaction back and forth, instead of coming in and saying, I was just with my ex-girlfriend. That's telling the audience. Do you know what I mean?
In Meisner, I think it's Meisner, they would have us come in through the door with a life already.
Yeah.
And you don't say where you came from, but
right.
You have this, you're full with this life.
Yeah. You know who's great at that? Raul Esparza.
He's awesome. I love that guy.
He's fantastic, and he thinks about every bit of that. And he walks through a door, and the scene is in motion the second he walks in, because he knows what he wants, he knows his goal, he knows why he's there. He's just great at it.
And when you see it on camera too, clearly.
Yeah. He's fantastic. There's a lot.
He's a great voice too.
Oh God, yeah. He can sing anything.
I went to Joyful Heart Foundation where he sang. I wonder if you were there now that I'm thinking about it.
I wasn't there last year, but I was there before that.
It was before that. It was like 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah, so then I was there.
Oh, shoot. Of course you were.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a big event.
I loved it. Oh, Biden was there. That's when I went.
Yeah, I was there that year.
That was a good time.
Yeah, Biden was in an episode that I wrote. That was I think it was Pattern 17.
That's awesome.
The rape kit backlog episode, yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, he was
And now
great.
look at us.
He came to set. He, was prepared. He, knew his lines, had his questions, did a fantastic job. And then he was taking pictures with everybody and everything else. And my daughter couldn't be there and wanted to be there. And I asked him to sign something for my daughter. He's like, well, where is she? And she was going to London or something. She was doing a thing at the Globe. She was doing a 3-week acting thing at the Globe. And she was about to leave and couldn't come to set. So he took my phone and called her. And, it's like, okay. And of course she didn't answer, so he left her a voicemail message.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which she has kept. It's still on her phone.
That's the coolest story I've ever heard.
Yeah, no, he was very, very nice.
Barb Kate Morrison said she was there that year too. Hi,
Yes.
Barb.
Hey, Barb, how are you?
It was a good time for us.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they really do a nice job.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a great foundation with a great purpose. And anybody who's listening who doesn't know it, you should look it up and give money. Yes, to answer Barb, my hair, although it's slicked back at the moment, is extremely long because I haven't gotten it cut since, I think, late January. And I am not going to get it cut until COVID is over. So it's actually getting really long. It gets curly when it's long, so it looks ridiculous. But where am I going, right?
I like long hair.
Yeah.
Let it grow.
Yeah. It's getting to, like, Kurt Russell in Escape from New York, where it's just...
Good reference. That's true. I see it coming.
Yeah. Yeah, if it wasn't wet, it would be curly.
And you're naturally redhead as well?
My beard used to be red, and my hair has been red at times. It goes between brown and red. When I was really little, it was like platinum blonde, and then it gradually went like more brownish red, auburn, and then it's kind of brownish now. But my beard was like Kris Kringle red until it went white.
Kris Kringle white.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And my daughters are both redheads, so.
Nice. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
They're very lucky. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a very small percentage of the population that are redheads. And the smallest percentage, which I didn't think, there's more brown-eyed redheads than blue-eyed redheads, which I wouldn't have expected, but is actually
true. Now that I think about it, I don't really see many of those.
Of the brown-eyed?
The brown-eyed, yeah.
Yeah, I think in New York, because it's mostly like an Irish, Northern Scandinavian population, it's probably mostly blue-eyed. But, my daughters look up all the facts on redheads, so they tell me. Including
Ginger
the fact that, yeah, like the Greeks believed that all redheads were vampires, and, would rise
That's
from the
maybe true.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not so sure they're not.
I haven't tried it, but...
Could be.
So when you get in like a funk with writing, what do you do to get out of it? Do you like light candles, meditate?
Do you mean when I get stuck with writing?
Mm-hmm.
I usually change projects. I usually have a couple different projects going on at the same time. There's usually one that is sort of paid work and that I'm working on. The others are things that I just kind of want to do, or that is fun to do, or that is really out there and I probably shouldn't do, but, why not? And to be honest, if I'm really stuck on something and I need to get it done, I go to sleep. I'll take a nap. And usually when I wake up, I figured it out. If I'm stuck on something, usually there's something structurally wrong or the character's doing something out of character. Because, yeah, I mean, after a while, I mean, if you've written enough, you start realizing I'm stuck and I'm stuck for a reason. And if you really get stuck, go out to 1,000 feet and saying, okay, I'm writing a thriller, so I'm going to go watch 3 Alfred Hitchcock movies or, Ocean's 11 or, whatever you choose to watch that's in the genre or has a comparison. And after a while, you'll realize George Nolfi, who's a pretty good writer, he actually wrote Ocean's 11. We were working on a project and he goes, oh, whenever I'm stuck, I just drop a body. If I kill somebody, it changes the story. So I drop a body and we move on. And, you know, the type of movies he writes, that makes perfect sense. You know, in a romantic comedy, it's let's have a complete misunderstanding. You know, there's tried and true tricks to, you know, in a thriller, it's you reveal somebody's not who you thought they were and they're working for the other side. And if you go back and you look at the structures of things and the conventions of the genre you're writing in, you usually can find where you've gone off the rails. Or you're
Yeah,
trying too hard.
I watched Ocean's 11 recently, and I was like, wow, like what a great story.
Yeah.
It's a classic. It is.
Yeah, it is. The original and the remake are both classics.
I only saw the remake, I guess.
Yeah, the remake's really good. I mean, the original is a classic for its time. I don't know that it holds up it doesn't hold up to now as well. You know, production value wise and that kind of thing.
That's what I was imagining.
Yeah.
So I like to ask my guests to bring a deep quote or enlightenment experience to share.
I have, because it's one of my favorite poems for a lot of reasons. Let me see if I can find it. I pulled it up so I could actually read it. There's a poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay, and the last 4 lines are, "Now goes under the sun, and I watch it go under. Farewell, sweet light, great wonder. You too farewell, but fare not well enough to dream. You've done wisely to invite the night before the darkness came." And that poem was given to me by a high school girlfriend a long time ago. And I used it in the novel I wrote, Until the Next Time. And the last line kind of always gets me. You know, you were right to invite the night before the darkness came. And it's just like, you know, things are ending and they're not meant to be, and you're meant to move on. You know, it's an acceptance of like, okay, it's time to go. Yeah. And it's and it always just kind of felt like something that I think most people fight too hard. You know, the moving on, getting on with it, you know, leaving behind something that's not working, or a relationship that's not working, a job that's not working, whatever. We hold on to things too tightly. And there's a power in moving towards something rather than away from something, you know? So I've always just loved that poem for a lot of
I love that. It's very valid for me today because I'm going home from my Navy job for 2 weeks, and I was thinking, sorry, I just got a text. I was thinking, wow, what if something happens and I can't come back, you know? And it's like, I'm getting comfortable here, so that means it's time for me to move on. I think when you get comfortable, it's like you want to hold on to it because you work so hard to achieve this level of comfort, but it's like, it's time to go.
Yeah. And I think it's a mistake a lot of us make, you know, just staying too long. You know, I've quit more jobs than most people will ever hold. And I don't regret any of them that I left.
Right.
You know, you move on. I have regretted them at points when I had no income and, you know, problems. But in the long term, did not regret leaving them. You know, the touring industry, which my brother is still in, he still works for Billy Joel. When I was 20 years old and going all around Europe with Springsteen, it was great. But I think if I stayed with that for 30 years, you know, you don't really get to have a family as much because you're always on the road. You know, you're up and moving and always going, and you're earning a good income, but you're on a touring schedule. You're on tour buses. You're on a plane. You know, all those kind of things. You know, I was an intern at Rolling Stone magazine for a summer when I was in college, and it was great to be at Rolling Stone magazine and, you know, meet all of those writers. But I hated journalism. And it seemed like a good opportunity. You want to be a writer, start at Rolling Stone magazine, maybe you can write a book. But I hated it. So I didn't take a job that was offered. You know, and I don't think I've ever regretted not taking a job, and I don't think I've ever regretted quitting a job. I have been fired from 2 jobs, but they were both jobs my father gave me, and he fired me. So I don't know if they count.
That doesn't count.
No. I deserve to be fired, by the way.
You earned it.
Yeah, I definitely earned it. You know, but it's sometimes it's just time to move on. And, you know, people grow, people change. If you don't do well, you can always move on again.
So speaking of parents and childhood, when you were younger, how did you know you wanted to be a writer?
You know, I'm one of six,
Okay.
and I was sort of the quiet, shy one. And so as a kid, I was always reading, and, you know, I just loved reading. And it was an escape for me, you know, and it was a way to learn things for me. And it was a way to, if I was reading, people left me alone. You know, it was like when there was work to do, you know, if everybody was goofing around playing games or whatever, they would have to go do work. But I was reading, so I might be doing schoolwork or something, so leave me alone, and I would get away with it. So that probably started it. And then in 6th grade in New York City public high schools, you have to take a part in a performing art. So you audition in 5th grade, and it's chorus, band, or drama. And I was told, you have absolutely no talent. You cannot be in band or chorus. You can't carry a note. Forget it. You're in drama. They can do something with you there. And I had a fantastic drama teacher for 3 years, Dan Clancy, who wrote some stuff for Off-Broadway later. But he was a great drama teacher. And I fell in love with acting, and we would write our own skits. And in 8th grade, I had Mrs. Kent, who let me, rather than doing a research paper, I could write a short story. As long as I cited where I got the information for the story and did the citations of what I did my research on, I could write it as a short story and not a research paper. And it was so much more fun and easier than writing a dry research paper about George Washington crossed the Delaware, you know. So I started writing that way. And there was a power to writing in middle school, because when you did the skits, you could make fun of all the teachers, the principal, all the kids in school, and people would laugh, and you'd get away with it, which you don't get away with if you're not on stage. So there was a power to writing that I found early, and a way of conveying things. And then it became fun. You know, it started being a little bit of a power trip that I could get away with that stuff and entertain people and get attention for it. But to be honest, I didn't take writing as seriously because I was into acting until college, when I started looking at the life of an actor and how hard it was and the odds against being successful. I was like, maybe I should write too, and you know, take that path. So I started writing, and you know, the writing took off, and I felt like I had more control over the writing, you know, because as an actor, you are who you are. You know, if they need somebody who's 6'3", you know, and white guy, you know, I could do that. I might pull off blue collar. You know, if I put my glasses on, I might pull off educated. But you know, it's you are who you are. You get cast. You know, you get typecast. No matter how well you can act, at a certain point, if you know you're shorter than the leading lady, you're not getting cast. You know, it's all of those kind of things.
Yeah.
But with writing, it didn't really matter, or I thought it didn't matter, and then I ended up on all cop shows. But you know, it was that kind of thing that I felt like I had more control. And then someone looked up the statistics on being successful as a Hollywood writer and being successful, or at least making a living as a Hollywood writer and making a living as an actor. And apparently there's more acting jobs than there are writing jobs. So I really didn't, you know, pick a career that had better odds, but I do think I had more control over it because I could make my own jobs. I can always write something and finish the script.
And write yourself into something.
Yeah. I never have, but
it's never too late, Kevin. What's that?
No, I could. No, like there's a feature film that I also did a TV pilot of that's based on these Deepak Chopra novels that I wrote 11 years ago. And the producer who had it 11 years ago called me like 3 months ago and said, we have a financier interested. So, you know, if you write, sometimes those scripts are like money in the bank. They're sitting there. There's nothing to do with them. They may never get made. But an 11-year-old script might suddenly resurface and somebody says, hey, we're looking for this. So, you know, keep writing. You never know.
So it's an investment anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you learn something from everything you write. And maybe it'll get made someday, maybe it won't. But I don't think writing has ever wasted time for a writer. because either you're learning something or you're doing something that could get made. You're learning what not to do. You're getting something out of it. I don't suggest writing to the point that that's all you're doing and not taking care of yourself otherwise. But, if you treat it like a job and you're always writing, you will learn, you'll get better, you'll learn what to do and what not to do. And hopefully you'll learn to listen to notes.
So what about, because I'm a huge fan of self-help. I love talking depth of spirituality and the signs and all that. So would you write something like that, or do you want to?
Well, the Deepak Chopra novels are actually sort of that. They're based on the legend. There's a legend in Judaism of the Lamed Vov, the 36. There's 36 pure souls in the world that keep the world in balance. And in these novels, those 36 souls have the ability to change reality. So they keep it on track so that it doesn't go off. But the storyline is basically one of the, and the contingency is those are 36 pure souls. But they're souls of pure intent. So you can have pure intent and still do something wrong, or still do something that could cause bad things to happen. So in this movie, there is one of the 36 who has this pure intent of making the world a better place by controlling it more and controlling people more. So there becomes this internal fight between the 36, and given that they can all sort of alter reality, it is very much a spiritual action movie in a way. And it was a lot of fun to write.
It's a movie. That's cool.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a movie first. We've talked about it as a TV series and as a movie, but I think we're going to do a movie first with the idea that since there's 36 of them, we can do spin-offs and do TV shows.
I'm Jewish. Are you Jewish?
No.
Yeah,
I grew up on the South Shore of Staten Island, and I'd say the vast majority of my classmates were Jewish, and I cannot tell you how many bar and bat mitzvahs I've been to in my life.
Mazel tov.
Yeah. Some of I'd say the majority of my best friends from elementary and high school were Jewish. So I grew up in a Jewish and Italian neighborhood, and I was the random Irish guy. So
that's where I'm from. Merrick is very much like that.
Yeah.
Very much. Yeah. So we have a few minutes left. So what? So people can follow you at these places, right? I guess that's they could follow you watching all of your Law and Order SVU episodes, obviously. 5 years worth, right? I think
5 years worth, 116 episodes.
Brava. And then the 36 and Raising Kanan.
The 36 is probably going to be a couple of years out because but Raising Kanan, I think we have an air date. We're supposed to start producing again in November with an air date, and we're going to produce 2 seasons back to back because we got interrupted filming the first season by COVID. And we have an air date. I think it's next summer. We will launch the series, and I think they're taking a month off of air dates. So we'll air 10, a month off, and then 10 more for the second season. And hopefully we'll be able to get those done and stick with that schedule. And then the Billy Joel thing, I have no idea, but that's moving along. And there's a couple other things I have in development that are too early to say. Pilots that I'm working on and different things. But looking forward, and one of them, actually 2 of them are animation. So, they could get made even in COVID.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Actually, casting started contacting me today. SVU contacted me today, asking if I could work, and I can't, unfortunately. But they want you to quarantine and pay. I think it's a paid quarantine too, and then do all the stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be a process for everybody, and one break in the chain is going to be problematic. The one person who says I did quarantine, but they really didn't. You can get everybody sick. And the biggest problem is that the only people who can't wear masks are the actors on screen, which are the only people you really can't film without.
Right.
So
break a leg for all of us in this industry going
Yeah,
forward. You know?
I really hope that things turn around and get better, and that all the precautions everyone's taking will work.
Let's pretend we're a part of the 36 and pray for the world.
If that project gets going, I would be so excited, because it's one of those that's very different, and different than other things that I've done. And my favorite thing is to do things that are very different than what I've done before. And it's harder to get those made, but if you can get something made and it's a romantic comedy or a science fiction, it's just a lot more fun because you get to play.
And I crave depth, and I always tell people, go watch Cloud Atlas, watch, it's a terrible movie, but it's a really great movie at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like we need these things, and people just lost track of that a long time ago, it seems. So,
well, I think the problem is that the people who are paying for them to get made, unless it's been made already, they don't know if there's a market, and the market craves it. So, when you start looking at it and suddenly they make it by accident because it was cheap to make, or because they owed people contracts, and okay, well, let's just burn off the contracts and give them this movie. They get something made, and then everybody tries to remake it for the next 5 years. But it's hard to make something truly original because there's no precedent. And if there's no precedent, you're taking too many risks with, sometimes tens, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's the investor's issue, I suppose.
Yeah. It's easier to make something will work.
Yeah, that's why there's a lot pumped out. Barbara Kate Morrison again said, great interview. Thank you. And then Tracy Lunder said, love the tree growing out of your head, Kevin.
Yes. I've been working on that for months.
Oh, don't cut it, Kevin. Don't cut it. I love it. Oh, so all right. So you're on Instagram, right? And Twitter?
I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Be prepared for political commentary, especially on Twitter.
That's where it belongs anyway.
Yeah. Nobody listens to me. I just vent.
I do, Kevin. I'm here for you.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for joining. This was really awesome, and I'm a huge fan of your work and of you, and thank you so much. Blessings.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And come back and talk about some deep stuff like Deepak Chopra, and I love talking that stuff,
Yeah, let's do that sometime.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Kevin Fox. Thank you, Steph. I know. He's so awesome. Law and Order SVU. The best. And his new projects are awesome. Check Kevin Fox out. He's a great writer. Writers aren't appreciated enough, and he is one that needs to be appreciated. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. And next Thursday, I'm having another producer on. He's an editor, though, so you'll find out the editing side of film and TV. Lawrence Epstein. It's going to be good. So, yeah, thank you again. I hope everyone's staying safe, taking care of themselves. Blessings and love.